So let's get on to the first law, the law of pain. The law of pain. How many of you have experienced something that appeared to have been very painful? Maybe you did something you shouldn't have said, yes, or sorry, you did something you shouldn't have done, or you said something you shouldn't have said. Just think back at your life, at the past. Many times, or sometimes, we have found ourselves in a situation where we wish we could recall it. We wish we could bring those situations back and then hope we will do those things better. Or maybe sometimes we've done something rather stupid or dumb, and you feel, if I was going to ask my younger self the same question I was asked, will I act that same way today with my awareness, with what I've learned, and with what I know? Will I handle it the same way? I remember, so I'll just share a personal story. And then, while I'm sharing this, I want you to just think back as well as to have there been something that you did, you said, you acted in a particular way, regardless how you must have acted in that way. The most important thing for you right now in this class is, have you learned anything? And it is called the law of pain. If you learn something from that painful experience, from that seemingly silly act or that dumb thing you did, then have you learned from it? Then that's from the law of pain. So I remember some time ago, I was working in this organization, and then it was as though my boss apparently told a lie against me. I didn't even know this. I didn't even know the whole story. So it appeared I made a mistake. I did what I shouldn't have done. But as far as I know, I didn't do anything wrong. But I was thinking I did something wrong. So I was called to question by the management. Did you do this? And I felt I caused the management certain pain. And then I started with, I am sorry. So by starting with, I am sorry, I then wanted to explain what I thought happened. So, but by me saying I am sorry, everybody on the table felt he's guilty. He did what was wrong. We said it. He did that thing. And then, long story cut short, it resulted into summary dismissal. I was fired right there at that spot. And this one was not even 1 month notice. And then later on, I don't know what happened. Some investigations were done, and they later realized that I was unjustly treated. What was done to me wasn't the right thing. So I was called back, and I wasn't apologized to, but I was just called back and reinstated back to my position. That thing pained me. So because while I was on suspension, I later realized, oh, it was because of what I did that resulted into this action. And what I did wasn't wrong in any sense. In fact, I was protecting the interest of the company. I was doing my job. What I was accused of was something I knew nothing about. In fact, the person who was accusing me actually had some other ulterior motive. In fact, he was the guilty one. But because he was my boss, it was the management, he tried to paint something and then made me look like the bad guy. So when I knew the whole story and then I was reinstated, I wasn't apologized to. But I felt so bad that, so if a management could take a decision like this without even making due diligence, I don't think I can work here. So I decided I was going to leave. So I resigned. Now I was called back and told, no, don't resign. This matter is resolved. Everything is fine. Don't worry. We're even going to promote you. We're going to give you this. Some good promises were made. But because I was emotional, I felt bad. I felt ill-treated, unjustly treated. I insisted I was going to go. Even though my guarantor also sent for me and assured me everything is sorted, everything is fine, just stay back and all that. But I insisted I was going to leave. And then I left. When I left, of course, that caused a little issue between myself and my guarantor and the company. Um, I didn't even know what I was going to do, but I just left because I was unhappy. I was pained. I was offended. I left. Now, over time, this took about 18 months or thereabout. I was struggling financially, I couldn't survive, I couldn't take care of myself, I couldn't pay my bills and all that. And then I realized the little relationship I still had left, let me see if I could still try it out. And then I wrote back the company. Now I was not the one apologizing and begging. I'm sorry, I was thoughtless because I was really begged and pleaded to stay, but I refused. I couldn't leave. And then I pleaded and apologized and all that. But long story cut short, I was brought back in. But I learned it in a very difficult way. Let me share another story. Now, this one is now in my own personal business. Bear in mind, I'm sharing law of pain. See, when you learn from certain painful experiences, when you find yourself in a similar situation, maybe not the exact situation, you've learned, you've known better. You want to act in a better way. Now, I had this business and it was doing very well. And I had staff who were working with me, but there were these two staff. In fact, if I'm in a business interview and I'm being asked that, what appeared to be your most expensive mistake or the most costly or most painful mistake you've made in business, I do not think it will be an investment that I made that was wrong, because yeah, there was some thoughtless investment I made. For example, I traveled to South Africa with my wife on vacation, and then somehow I got to know about a business opportunity right there. We invested. We came to Nigeria. We pumped in some more money there. The whole thing went crashing. We didn't even do our due diligence. The whole thing just all the money just went. That was painful. But for me, I think this one I want to share seemed to be the most painful of my business decisions so far. Now, we were getting into business expansion, and I had these two staff who were very loyal, dedicated, hardworking, sacrificial. They worked as though they were my partners in the business and they were just my employees. And then it got to a time we were trying to expand. Even the expansion, the idea came from one of them. Sir, the business is growing and all that. Just one government policy can just run us out of business. Why not go into this other industry? Fantastic idea. I agreed. And then, so I put the both of them in charge of it. Go make the findings, how to expand and all the rest. In the process, we had to get in some more staff, some more experienced people in that industry, including a consultant. The consultant came. I'm sharing the story, but as I'm sharing it, I want you to look back at your life. If you refuse to learn from the past, there is no way you will make a better decision in the present or even in the future. So this may not, represent directly on here. However, this is something that we as humans we face in our everyday life. The consultant came in, and then in the course of their interaction, he told one of my other staff that these guys are trying to sabotage the business. So I got to know I was offended, I was upset. Well, he alleged that they were trying to sabotage the business. I fired them. I was upset, I was furious, and all that. I fired them. And I remember it was a guy and a lady. The lady was crying, she was begging, she said, "You're going to treat me, she said, you're going to pay me back." And all. I can see her face as I'm talking right now, but I was furious, I was pained, I felt betrayed, and all that. I fired them. I never knew this consultant actually had a big plan ahead. He was trying to, so he knew these people were my confidant. These were people who were my eye. These people were my foot. And he wanted to get rid of them so that I could be vulnerable and then he could cheat on me and do different things. Long story cut short, he sabotaged the business himself. The contract we had, all the investment and all that, turned the whole thing around. I went away with several millions of naira, talking about something that happened almost 10 years or more ago. Right. Now, if I'm in that same situation today, and I have some people who have worked with me for 1 year, 2 years, 3 years, and I've seen how dedicated through thin and thick, through hard and tough times. And now we're expanding, and somebody comes to tell me these guys are stealing from you. One of the last things I would do at that point is to fire them. Instead, maybe now that I know, one of the things I might do might be to move them to a department or to a section that doesn't really expose them to money, and then test to find out if that allegation was true. We're looking at the law of pain. If you refuse to learn from your pain, you are going to go through that over and over again. Good management of bad experiences lead to great growth. And of course, you know that pain is unavoidable as far as this industry is concerned. Sometimes we even find a client will tell a lie, will allege something, and the management will believe. The company you're working with might even believe and put certain sanctions on you. And then maybe you unknowingly, out of emotion, you react. Maybe they place you on suspension. And then with that, you decide to do something that you shouldn't have done. And then now you are reinstated. And then you're now noticing something similar is as though it wants to happen again, perhaps with the same client or with another client. Or you even now resign and you move to another company. But between the time you resign and moving somewhere else, you see the struggle you've gone through, the exposure, perhaps financial exposure, immigration exposure you put yourself and your family into. You want to be more careful because of the experience you have had because of the pain you've been through. Through that pain, you've learned to be more patient and act in a better way. Or have you had to face certain challenges with your patients, with your colleagues, or situations like I've experienced or I've shared with you? You want to see from that pain, how else or how better do I need to act if I find myself in this situation? Law of pain. Before we move into the next law, I want you to just introspect and think back at just one situation in your life in the past, particularly on your job. That's why on this session, I hope everybody is paying attention. You are not doing something else and listening to me. You are actually fully here in this class. I want you to just think through on the past of just one scenario, one situation, and particularly at work, what you did that if you were given the chance to relieve or to do that again, what would you do, or what might you do differently? What did you do that cost you pain and that you've learned from? And then if you're given the chance again, what would you do differently? And when you give yourself to doing that same thing again but doing it differently, what outcome do you think you're likely to have different from the outcome you had that cost you pain?